I turned 42 months before the wedding that would expose more truths than any anniversary ever could. My name is Aisha Carter, and if you'd met me a year ago, you'd have seen a woman with a well-worn Metro card, 2 pairs of comfortable heels for unpredictable New York sidewalks, and a tidy life arranged in color-coded Google calendars. I manage brand partnerships for a nonprofit arts collective in Brooklyn. I drink my coffee black because sugar masks the roast. I keep a small basil plant on my windowsill that refuses to die even in February. On most days, my reflection in the hallway mirror looks like someone who knows who she is. On most days, it was late spring when the invitation arrived, fat with cardstock and optimism. My friend Marcus, who I've known since freshman orientation at Howard, had written me 3 days before to say, "Don't forget to RSVP, miss, I live in my inbox," he wrote, teasing me. Marcus said. The envelope smelled faintly of gardenia, and the script announced what Instagram had already made public. Marcus Williams would marry Elena Vasquez on a Saturday in June at a converted warehouse by the Hudson, where exposed brick met strings of Edison bulbs. I held the invite a long time, feeling the weight of it. Marcus is one of the few people who has seen me at my lowest and still offered me leftovers and a couch. Saying yes was easy. I met Elena twice before the wedding. The first time, she breezed into Marcus's birthday with a city its own confidence, hugging me like she'd known me for years and then asking if I thought the DJ playlist needed more 90s R&B. I want people to actually dance, not just nod like they're at a gallery opening, she said. Elena said, I like that. The second time, over tacos on a chilly March evening, she quizzed me about Marcus's quirks as if studying for a final. Is he serious when he says he hates cilantro, or is he being dramatic? She asked. Elena asked. He's dramatic about cilantro, but only when there's an audience, I told her. I said. She laughed, and I remember thinking, she's good for him. A week before the wedding, my mother called from Atlanta with the particular curiosity she reserves for anything involving formal wear or potential scandal. What are you wearing? And do they have competent photographers? She pressed. My mother said. I told her about the tea-length navy dress, the one whose pockets felt like a private victory, and assured her that Marcus had hired a whole team with mood boards and a drone. Don't stand in the back just to make yourself small, she added. My mother said. You are not a footnote in anybody's story. I promised I wouldn't. I intended to mean it. Work churned like it always does. Grand deadlines, last-minute sponsor requests, and artists who insisted every caption include her astrological rising sign. But I made time to get my hair trimmed, choosing a blunt bob that framed my face. On the way home, a woman at the bodega complimented me. Sharp, she said. The cashier said. I smiled and bought a mango, an impulsive sweetness. In the mirror that night, I practiced a toast I wasn't planning to give, just to hear my voice steady and warm. To love chosen daily, not just staged once. I murmured. I said. I put the words away like a secret picture in a wallet. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright, with the kind of June light that makes everything look honest. I jogged along Eastern Parkway, my playlist full of women who sing like they built their own world. After breakfast, I pinned a small gold locket at my collarbone, a photo of my grandmother tucked inside. In the Uber, I stared at the skyline and thought about how weddings are less about two people than about every person who taught them to love or not love. I wondered what my grandmother would have said about a warehouse ceremony. At least no one will trip on church carpet, I imagine her saying. My grandmother would have said. The venue smelled like sawdust and floral arrangements that had been misted to hold their breath. Guests drifted in wearing confidence and sensible shoes for cobblestones. I spotted Marcus near the back, talking to his cousin, the one who turns every story into a sermon. He saw me and broke into that grin that has erased more bad news than aspirin. You look like the executive producer of Good Decisions, he said. Marcus said. You look like a man about to make one, I answered. I said. We hugged long enough for someone to joke that the wedding was off. His eyes were a little glassy. Pre-ceremony adrenaline or nerves? I'm glad you're here, he whispered. Marcus said. Of course I'm here, I replied. I said. Elena arrived in a whirl of white crepe and structured calm. Her dress was the sort that refuses to be just pretty. It was architectural, with a clean line at the neckline and a train that behaved itself. She squeezed my hands and said, "We're doing this," Elena said. "You already did it when you chose each other." I answered, I said. The planner, tiny headset, capable of moving mountains with a glance, herded us all into rows for the ceremony. A trio played a song that used to live on late-night radio, and the officiant, who was also a poet, reminded us that commitment is less firework and more stove flame. We cried at the right moments. We laughed too, when Elena corrected her own vows mid-sentence like a writer unsatisfied with a draft. "Sorry, better word," she said into the microphone. Elena said, "The kiss had history in it, the way truly right things do." Afterwards, appetizers arrived on trays like small gifts: tiny crab cakes, cucumber cups with salmon, something with fig that made me whisper a thank you. I wasn't sure who to address. I found a table near the back where I could watch without needing to be watched, a habit older than I like to admit. During cocktail hour, people kept asking how long I'd known Marcus. "Long enough to know this suit is the first time I've seen him follow instructions," I joked. I said. "A tall ant with a gorgeous silver crop told me. He always talked about you like you were his compass," she said. The ant said. I looked toward the dance floor where he was attempting salsa, slightly off the beat, his joy-making precision irrelevant. I felt a swell of pride that wasn't possessive, just rooted. Loving friends like family doesn't diminish their other loves. It elongates them, pulls light through. The photographers were a choreography of their own, kneeling, stepping, calling for shoulders to angle and chins to lift. The lead photographer, a woman in a black jumpsuit with pockets full of lens caps, grinned at me. "You have a great listening face," she said. The photographer said. "It's a non-profit training," I replied. I said. She laughed and moved on to wrangle a bouquet toss nobody really wanted but everyone would pretend to enjoy later on social media. I found myself beside the window, watching the river. New York looked like itself and something softer. A little girl in a tulle dress stood next to me, her nose to the glass. "Do you think the water is cold?" she asked. The flower girl asked. "It's New York water," I told her. "It's always a little colder than you think, and a little braver," I said. She nodded as if I'd said something wise and skipped away to investigate a plate of macarons like an archaeologist. Dinner was peaches and clinking glasses. Marcus's mother spoke with the authority of a woman who had raised a man who calls home on Tuesdays. "Love is work, but it is joyful labor when you choose wisely," she said. Marcus's mother said. Elena's brother made us laugh with stories of her meticulous lists, then turned tender and thanked Marcus for bringing his sister more laughter than he'd seen since their father died. I dabbed at my eyes and sipped water to keep my head clear. I wanted to remember details: the precise green of the eucalyptus and the centerpieces, the way the candles created halos on the exposed brick. Memory is a second ceremony. After the cake cutting, the DJ slid into a set that made everyone from flower girls to grandfathers move. I danced with Marcus's cousin, who spun me once like we were in a video, and then with Elena's aunt, who taught me a step I didn't know how to name. I felt beautiful, not because of the dress or the hair, but because joy has a way of arranging the face in kindness. By the time the planner announced it was time for golden hour photos, the room had loosened into ease. We filed outside to the waterfront promenade where the light was doing that cinematic thing directors beg for. The photographers arranged a family first, then friends, then the chosen family, which is where I found my place. Marcus kept making faces to make Elena laugh, and she kept biting her lip to reprimand him lightly, a duet of respect and mischief. I stood at the edge of a row, hands loosely clasped, the breeze lifting the edge of my skirt. Someone behind me whispered, "This light is forgiving," they said. A guest said. I thought, it shouldn't need to be. There are moments when the atmosphere mutates, almost inaudibly, and your skin registers the shift before your brain. The lead photographer called for a configuration that had the wedding party flanking the couple, a wide semicircle. A bridesmaid slid 2 inches to the left. The best man wiped his forehead with a handkerchief like a character from an old film. The planner gestured for me to step back a bit so the line would curve perfectly. I nodded and took the smallest step. Then the bride spoke. "You're ruining the photos," she said. Elena said. It wasn't a shout. It wasn't even loud. But the sentence was carved to cut. For a beat, I thought she was teasing. The way she'd teased Marcus about his tie earlier. Faces around us rearranged their expressions like furniture in a panic. The photographer blinked, the planner checked the horizon. Marcus's jaw tensed so briefly you'd miss it if you didn't know him in semesters and seasons. Heat rose in my cheeks. I felt the way you feel when you miss a final step on the subway and for a heartbeat you're weightless and foolish. My bad, I said automatically. The reflex of a girl raised to apologize for occupying space, I said. I moved another inch back, then another, my body obeying an older script. The air seemed to thin out. I could hear the river. I could hear a gull make a sound like laughter and accusation. I could hear the small betrayal of my pulse in my ears. Marcus took a step toward me. Elena, what are you doing? He asked. Marcus asked. His voice was soft, but not unsure. The bride's eyes were bright and distant at once. The color palette, she said, Elena said, as if that explained everything only to anyone who needed it explained. The balance, she motioned to the photographer, an authority bestowed by dress and day. A bridesmaid glanced down, then at me, then away. The best man cleared his throat and studied his polished shoes. The planner's pen hovered over her clipboard as if it could write us all a better outcome. I swallowed. The basil plant in my kitchen felt a galaxy away. My grandmother's locket pressed cool against my skin. Something in me tired of elevators where people clutch their bags, tired of makeup counters where foundation stops at someone else's shade, tired of meetings where my ideas show up with another person's mouth stiffened into clarity. The apology that had already formed on my tongue disappeared like fog under noon sun. I stepped forward, not back. My heels clicked against the stone with a small, declarative sound. No, I said simply, I said. My voice surprised me with its steadiness. I moved until I was between Elena and Marcus, a line drawn not with anger but with refusal. You do not get to erase me from my friend's life to perfect your frame, I added, I said. My hands didn't shake. A hush pulled tight around us. The river kept doing what rivers do, moving forward whether or not anyone is ready. The photographer lowered her camera an inch, then raised it again. The planner exhaled. Marcus's face softened in a way that told me he understood exact proportions, dignity, history, friendship, the math of belonging. Elena opened her mouth and closed it. The light had shifted another degree, the golden hour threatening to age into ordinary evening. Somewhere behind us, the DJ tested a bass line. I could feel the eyes of strangers and almost strangers. I could feel the old instructions to be gracious, to be quiet buckling like outdated scaffolding. I could feel, finally, the ground under my feet choosing me back. Let's take the picture, I said to the photographer. The decision offered like a bridge, I said. As we are. The silence that followed my words clung to the air longer than it should have, stretching like fabric pulled too tight. I could feel the weight of every gaze, some curious, some uncomfortable, and a few mercifully approving. My chest rose and fell in steady defiance. I wasn't backing away. Not this time. The photographer adjusted her lens and, to her credit, said nothing about palettes or balance. She just lifted her camera and clicked. The shutter sound cut through the tension, turning the moment into something permanent, undeniable. Elena's face was taut, her smile brittle. Marcus glanced at me, a mix of gratitude and apology flickering in his eyes, though he said nothing. When the session ended, the group scattered quickly, as if proximity to conflict might stain their clothes. I stepped aside, exhaling slowly. My hands trembled just a little, betraying the calm I tried to hold. A groomsman brushed past me, muttering, "Bold move," he said, though his tone made it unclear if he meant admiration or criticism. I found a quiet spot near the railing, the river glinting like melted glass under the fading light. My phone buzzed a text from my mother. "Send me a photo when you can. I want to see the dress." I almost laughed. If only she knew. I typed back, "Later, Mama. Love you." A shadow approached. Marcus. He leaned against the railing, close enough to share the silence, far enough to give me space. "You didn't deserve that," he said, Marcus said. His voice was low, as if he feared the wind might carry it back to Elena. "I've been told worse," I answered, I said, but the words rang hollow. Being told worse doesn't make a fresh cut hurt any less. He rubbed his jaw. watching the river. Elena's particular, he said carefully. Marcus said, sometimes she gets caught up in details. She didn't mean she meant it. I interrupted, I said. My voice wasn't harsh, just certain. She might regret saying it out loud, but she meant it. Marcus flinched a little, not from me but from the truth. He didn't argue. Instead, he sighed, the kind of sigh that comes from carrying two loyalties at once. I'm sorry, he said finally. Marcus said. You don't need to apologize for her, I replied. I said, just don't let her erase the people who were here before her. He looked at me then, really looked, his eyes glassy. I could never erase you, he said. Marcus said. His hand brushed mine briefly, an anchor, before he pushed himself upright. Come on, they're about to announce the first dance. Don't disappear on me. I followed him back inside. The reception had shifted gears. The lights were warmer, the music softer. Guests circled the dance floor, phones in hand, ready to immortalize Marcus and Elena's first dance. They moved together to a song I recognized, an old Motown ballad Marcus once played on repeat during a road trip. His smile was gentle, but every so often, his eyes darted toward me and the crowd. Elena clung tightly to him, as though proving a point. When the song ended, applause erupted. The DJ transitioned smoothly into an upbeat track, pulling guests onto the floor. I tried to let the rhythm loosen the knot in my chest. A cousin grabbed my hand, twirling me clumsily, and for a moment, laughter broke through the heaviness. But whispers travel faster than music. I caught fragments as I moved through the crowd. Did you see? Awkward timing. She stood her ground, though. People love a spectacle, especially one that doesn't cost them anything. At dinner, I found myself seated at a table with Elena's co-workers. They were polite, their smiles stiff. A woman in a green dress leaned toward me. You and Marcus go way back, huh? She asked. The co-worker said, since college. I replied. I said, he's family to me. She nodded, then added with a half smile, well, I guess every wedding needs a little drama. I pressed my fork into the salmon but didn't answer. Some people treat pain like seasoning, something to sprinkle for flavor. Halfway through the meal, Elena approached the table. Her smile was a performance, every tooth accounted for. I hope you're enjoying yourself, she said brightly. Elena said. Her eyes, however, were sharp. The food is wonderful, I answered evenly. I said. She leaned closer, her perfume floral and suffocating. I didn't mean what I said earlier, she murmured. Elena said. You know how wedding stress is. Everything has to be perfect. I held her gaze. Perfect doesn't have to mean cruel, I replied softly. I said. Her jaw tightened, but she recovered quickly. Of course, she said with a thin smile. Elena said. She straightened and announced to the table. Aisha here has known Marcus longer than anyone. Isn't that special? Her tone dripped with possession, as though staking her claim. The table chuckled politely. I swallowed my retort and forced a smile. There are battles worth picking, and others that reveal themselves in time. After dinner, I escaped to the patio, needing air. The night was cooler now, the city skyline glittering like sequins against the dark. I leaned against the railing, replaying the moment again and again. Her words echoed in my mind, not because they were original, but because they carried the weight of dismissal, the oldest wound I knew. A voice broke my thoughts. Mind if I join you? It was the lead photographer, the woman in black. She held her camera like an extension of herself. Go ahead, I said. She leaned beside me, scrolling through previews on her camera. You know, she said. The photographer said, that shot of you standing between them, it's powerful. Not pretty, not staged powerful. I glanced at her, startled. You kept it? I asked. I said. Of course, she said. It tells the truth. The words settled in my chest, heavier than champagne but steadier too. Maybe the photo would never make the official album. Maybe it would be deleted before sunrise. But for one moment, someone else had seen what I felt. Not disruption, but presence. The rest of the evening blurred. I danced a little, laughed when Marcus's uncle attempted the worm, hugged relatives I barely remembered. But beneath it all, a quiet ache pulsed. Weddings are supposed to be about beginnings, yet I couldn't shake the sense that something had already cracked open. When it was time to leave, Marcus found me near the coat check. His tie was loosened, His face flushed from dancing. "Thank you for being here," he said sincerely, Marcus said. "Wouldn't have missed it," I replied. I said. He hesitated, then added, "Don't let tonight make you doubt where you stand in my life." His eyes searched mine, urgent. "I know where I stand," I said. But as I walked out into the cool night air, heels clicking on the pavement, I wondered if that would remain true now that Elena had drawn her line. The city buzzed around me, indifferent yet alive. I inhaled deeply, the scent of street food and asphalt grounding me. My phone buzzed again, another text from Mama. "Did you get a picture with the groom?" I looked up at the sky, dark and endless. For the first time that night, I smiled. "Yes," I typed back, "and it's one I'll never forget." The Monday after the wedding, I walked into the office with the same rhythm I always carried. Swipe keycard, nod at security, ride the elevator with headphones in. But the rhythm was off. I felt it in my shoulders, in the tightness of my jaw. The weekend replayed itself in loops, Elena's words echoing louder than the music that had filled the warehouse. My colleague, Dana, waved from her desk, a smile already forming. "How was the wedding?" she asked. Dana said, balancing her latte on a stack of reports. I hesitated. The easy answer would be beautiful, fun, romantic. But the truth tugged harder. "Complicated," I replied. I said. She raised her brows, interested. "That's not the usual review." "Spill." I set my bag down and sighed. "Let's just say the bride and I had a moment." Dana leaned forward, grinning like gossip was her morning vitamin. "A good moment or a bad moment?" she asked. Dana asked. "Bad enough that I'm still thinking about it 2 days later," I admitted. I said. Her eyes widened. "What happened?" I shook my head. "Later. I need coffee first." At my desk, I opened my laptop, but emails blurred. My mind kept drifting to Marcus, whether he'd woken up Sunday morning with regret, whether Elena had smoothed it over, whether my presence now felt like a wedge between them. By lunchtime, I caved and texted him. "Hey, how are you holding up?" The reply came quick. "Exhausted. Honeymoon flight got delayed. Sitting in GFK right now." "You?" I typed back. "Surviving Monday. Hope you at least got good champagne at the gate." He sent a photo. Him with a plastic cup, smiling but tired. Elena sat beside him, her face turned away, scrolling her phone. The caption read, "Not quite champagne, but it'll do." I stared at the image longer than necessary. They looked like a couple starting their married life, but there was a space between them, invisible but unmistakable. I wondered if anyone else would notice. That night, Mama called. She never waited long to follow up on anything. "So, tell me about the wedding," she demanded. My mother said. I sat on the couch, the basil plant on the windowsill catching the streetlight. "It was beautiful. The venue, the music, the food," and she pressed. She always knew when I was holding something back. "And the bride said something to me, something sharp." In front of everyone, Mama's voice hardened. "What did she say?" "She told me I was ruining the photos." A pause. Then, "Lord have mercy," she muttered. My mother said. "She said that? To you? In front of people?" "Yes." "And what did you do?" I hesitated. I stood my ground. Literally. I stood between her and Marcus. Silence stretched on the line. Then Mama exhaled, a sound equal parts pride and sorrow. "Good," she said firmly. My mother said, "You didn't let her make you small." "I don't know if Marcus sees it that way," I admitted. "You listen to me, Aisha," she said, her tone the same one she used when I was a child about to make excuses. "If that man knows his own heart, he'll remember who stood by him long before that woman ever walked into his life. And if he forgets, well, that tells you something too." Her words sat heavy in my chest. After we hung up, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if friendship could survive a marriage that started with a wound. The week trudged on. Work deadlines kept me busy, but I felt like I was moving underwater. Dana pried a little, then backed off when she saw my expression. On Wednesday, she slipped a chocolate bar onto my desk with a sticky note, "For when words hurt worse than emails." I smiled, grateful. Friday evening, I walked home from the subway and spotted Marcus's name flashing on my phone. I answered quickly. "Hey," he said, his voice warm but weary. "Marcus said, you're back already?" I asked. Yeah, honeymoon didn't last. Elena had a work emergency. Or at least that's what she called it. His sigh traveled through the line. How are you? I'm fine, I said. Then, before I could stop myself, how are you really? He chuckled, though it sounded hollow. Adjusting, he admitted, Marcus said. Listen, about what happened at the wedding, you don't owe me an explanation. I interrupted, I said. Yes, I do, he insisted. Elena, she can be particular, like I said, but she was wrong to speak to you that way. I told her as much. That startled me. You did? Of course. You're my friend, my family. She knows that. I closed my eyes, relief mixing with doubt. And how did she take that? There was a pause. Not great, he admitted, Marcus said. But she'll come around. I wanted to believe him. I hope so. We talked a while longer. About small things, his flight, my work project, the Mets game he missed. But when we hung up, the unease lingered. Words can't undo humiliation. They can only mark where it landed. Saturday, I met Dana for brunch. She eyed me over her mimosa. You look like you've been carrying something all week, she said, Dana said. I sighed. It's Marcus. I'm afraid his marriage might change everything between us. She tilted her head. Maybe it will. But maybe that's not always bad. Sometimes relationships shift. What matters is whether they break. Her words stayed with me. I thought about them later that night as I sat at my desk, staring at my grandmother's photo in the locket. She had lived through harder slides than mine, segregated classrooms, paychecks cut short, neighbors who crossed the street to avoid her. And yet she raised children and laughed loud and carried herself like she belonged everywhere. Belonging, I realized, isn't given. It's claimed. The following week, I received a text from Marcus. Can we meet? Just us. Coffee? I agreed, though my stomach nodded. We met at a cafe in Harlem, one we'd frequented in our 20s when money was tight but dreams were big. He was already seated, stirring his coffee, though it didn't need stirring. You look tired, I said gently, I said. He laughed without humor. Marriage is an adjustment, he admitted, Marcus said. I studied him. Do you regret it? His eyes flickered. No, I love her, but I also don't want to lose you in the process. The honesty in his voice broke something in me. You won't lose me, I said firmly, I said, unless she pushes me out. He leaned forward. I won't let that happen, he promised, Marcus said. We sat in silence a while, the clatter of cups and chatter around us filling the space. I wanted to believe him. I needed to. But deep down, I knew promises made in coffee shops are easier than promises kept in kitchens shared with a spouse. When I left the cafe, the city air felt thick, like rain was coming. I walked slowly, each step heavy with the knowledge that the battle wasn't over. Elena had drawn her line. I had drawn mine. And Marcus was caught in the middle. For the first time, I wondered if standing between them that night wasn't just about the photo. Maybe it was about everything that was coming next. 2 weeks slipped by, but the wound from the wedding didn't fade. If anything, it deepened, like a bruise that darkens before it heals. On the surface, life went on, emails answered, groceries bought, subway delays endured, but beneath it all, my mind replayed that moment again and again. Elena's voice, sharp and public, my own decision to stand tall, Marcus's silence, then his apology. One evening, I decided to walk instead of taking the train home. Harlem's summer air was thick with music and street vendors, the smell of fried food mingling with car exhaust. I needed the noise, the life, something to drown out the endless loop in my head. As I passed a small park, kids were chasing each other through sprinklers, their laughter unbothered by the world. For a moment, I envied them. No expectations, no politics of friendship and marriage, just joy. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Elena wants to have dinner with you. Just the three of us. Can you? I stopped walking. My chest tightened. Dinner with Elena? Voluntary proximity after what she'd said. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Finally, I typed, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Seconds later, he replied, "I think it's necessary. She wants to clear the air. Please." I stared at the screen, torn. Every part of me screamed to say no, but Marcus's pleas tipped the scale. "Fine. Tell me when," I wrote back. The dinner was set for Friday, at a restaurant downtown Marcus claimed had the best seafood risotto in the city. All week, My nerves buzzed. Dana noticed, of course. You're chewing your pen again, she scolded, Dana said, pointing at the bite marks on my favorite Pilot G2. I groaned. Marcus wants me to have dinner with Elena. Dana's eyes widened. Wait, the same Elena who told you you were ruining the photos? The very same. And you said yes? I didn't want to, but Marcus asked. And I trailed off. You couldn't say no. Dana finished for me. I nodded. She leaned back in her chair. Be careful, Aisha. Don't let her twist us into making you the villain. Friday came too fast. I stood in front of my mirror longer than necessary, choosing a dress that wasn't too formal but not casual either. I settled on a deep burgundy wrap dress and gold earrings that had been a birthday gift from Mama. Before leaving, I touched a locket at my collarbone, as though my grandmother's photo might shield me. The restaurant was softly lit, the kind of place where conversations felt private even though tables were close. Marcus waved when he saw me, already seated with Elena. She wore a sleek black dress, her makeup flawless. Her smile was polite, almost rehearsed. Aisha, you look beautiful, Marcus said warmly. Marcus said, thank you, I replied, forcing a smile. Elena chimed in. Yes, you do. Very elegant, she said. Elena said. The compliment landed flat, like something she felt obligated to say. We ordered drinks, wine for them, sparkling water for me. The silence stretched until Elena leaned forward. I wanted to meet because I know things were tense at the wedding, she began. Elena said. Tense is one word for it, I said evenly. She flinched slightly but continued. I spoke out of turn. I was stressed, overwhelmed, and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair. Marcus looked at me expectantly, as if waiting for me to extend an olive branch. But I wasn't going to let her off that easily. You didn't just speak out of turn, I said quietly. I said, you tried to erase me in front of everyone. Her lips parted, then pressed together. That wasn't my intention, she insisted. Elena said, maybe not, but that's how it landed. Marcus interjected, his voice pleading. We're here to move forward. I don't want either of you feeling like enemies. Elena's gaze locked on mine. I don't want to be enemies either, she said. I studied her. Her tone was calm, but something in her eyes, pride, maybe, or possession, didn't soften. She wasn't apologizing for what she'd felt, only for how it had come across. The waiter arrived with bread, breaking the tension for a moment. I tore a piece slowly, gathering my thoughts. I'll accept your apology, I said finally. I said, but acceptance doesn't erase the fact that it happened. Trust takes time to rebuild. Marcus exhaled in relief, though Elena's smile was thin. That's fair, she said. Elena said. Dinner continued, conversation skimming safer topics. Marcus's work projects, a new art exhibit I'd been excited about, Elena's recent promotion. Outwardly, everything looked civil, but under the table, my hands were clenched, my nails pressing crescents into my palm. When dessert arrived, Marcus excused himself to take a phone call, leaving us alone. Elena sipped her wine, then leaned closer. Her voice dropped. I need you to understand something, she said. Elena said. I braced myself. What's that? Marcus is my husband now. I know you two share history, and I respect that. But I'm his future, and I need to know you won't stand between us. The words were calm, but the message was clear. A boundary, a warning. I felt my pulse quicken. I have no intention of standing between you, I replied slowly. I said, but I also won't let you push me out of his life. Her eyes hardened for a fraction of a second, then softened again as Marcus returned. She smiled at him as if nothing had passed between us. Later, walking home, the city lights blurred in my eyes. Anger, sadness, and determination tangled inside me. She wanted me gone, that much was clear. But Marcus wasn't hers to control, not entirely. When I got home, I called Mama. She answered on the second ring. How was dinner? She asked. Polite on the surface, hostile underneath, I admitted. Mama sighed. That woman sees you as a threat. Not because you are, but because she's insecure. Don't let her shake your ground. I told her I won't let her erase me, I said. Good, Mama replied firmly. Keep standing. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet, staring at my basil plant. Its leaves reached stubbornly toward the window, alive despite neglect, despite everything. I thought about that photograph the photographer had captured, the one Elena probably hated. A record of me refusing to disappear. Maybe Elena believed she'd drawn her line, but so had I, and I wasn't going anywhere. The following weeks were a study in careful distance. Marcus texted me less, though when he did, his words carried warmth. Little inside jokes only we would understand. I answered, of course, but always with a small hesitation. I knew why the space had grown. It wasn't him. Not fully. It was Elena, her presence like a curtain slowly pulling closed between us. One evening, Dana invited me over for wine and takeout. She lived in a walk-up with exposed brick and too many plants she claimed cleaned the air. I collapsed onto her couch, kicking off my shoes. "You look like you've been fighting ghosts," she observed, Dana said, handing me a glass. I sighed. "Not ghosts, just Elena." Her brows lifted. "Again?" "Not directly. But Marcus has been quieter. I can feel her fingerprints on it." Dana shook her head. "She's threatened. And when people feel threatened, they control whatever they can. Doesn't mean you have to let her." Easier said than done. Later that week, Marcus called. His voice was low, rushed. "Can you meet me tomorrow?" "Coffee shop, same one as last time?" Marcus asked. "Of course," I replied. When I arrived, he was already there, staring into a cup gone cold. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes. "What's going on?" I asked, sliding into the chair across from him. He rubbed his face. "Elena and we've been arguing. About you." My stomach dropped. "What about me?" "She thinks you take up too much space in my life," he admitted, Marcus said. "She doesn't understand why I lean on you the way I do." I sat back, the words cutting sharper than I expected. "And what do you tell her?" "That you're family. That nothing changes that." I swallowed hard. "And does she believe you?" His silence was answer enough. "Marcus," I began, but he shook his head. "I don't want to lose you, Aisha," he said. Marcus said, "But I don't know how to keep the peace at home if she feels like she's competing." The word competing stung. "I'm not competing with her," I said firmly. I never have been. I just want to stay your friend." "I know," he said quickly. Marcus said, "I know, but I don't think she sees it that way." The rest of the conversation circled without resolution. When I left the cafe, the city felt louder than usual, every honk and shout pressing against me. That night, I called Mama. She listened quietly as I recounted everything. Finally, she said, "This woman wants to isolate him. That's what control looks like. But remember what I told you, you don't shrink. You don't disappear." Her words gave me strength, but fear lingered. A week later, Marcus hosted a small game night at their apartment. Board games, snacks, laughter. He insisted I come, even though I hesitated. "It'll be fine," he promised, Marcus said. The apartment was modern and sleek. Elena's touch everywhere, neutral tones, curated art, not a cushion out of place. People crowded the living room, drinks in hand. Marcus greeted me with a warm hug, though Elena's smile was tight. "We're glad you could make it," she said smoothly. Elena said, "Thanks for having me," I replied. The night began light enough. We played a trivia game, laughter bouncing off the walls. But as the evening wore on, tension slipped in. At one point, Marcus recalled a story from college, one of our countless late-night adventures. Everyone laughed, but Elena's face hardened. After the game ended, she pulled me aside to the kitchen. Her tone was low, sharp. "Do you always have to be at the center of his stories?" she asked. Elena asked. I blinked. "I didn't tell the story." "He did. But you lived it. And he keeps returning to those memories with you." "Not me." Her words were laced with accusation. I steadied my voice. "That's because I was there, Elena. That's what history is." She crossed her arms. "Well, history doesn't build a marriage." "I do." I opened my mouth, but before I could respond, Marcus entered, holding a tray of drinks. He paused, sensing the tension. "Everything okay?" he asked. Marcus asked. Elena plastered on a smile. "Of course," she said quickly. Elena said. I forced a smile too, but my insides churned. After the guests left, Marcus walked me to the elevator. "She cornered you, didn't she?" he asked softly. Marcus asked. I nodded. "She doesn't want me here, Marcus." He closed his eyes briefly. "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize for her," I said gently. Just Be honest with yourself about what this means. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside. As they closed, I caught his expression torn, weary, caught between two worlds. The next morning, I woke with resolve. If Elena thought she could push me out quietly, she was wrong. I had been in Marcus's life for over 2 decades. I had seen him through heartbreak, career shifts, family losses. I wasn't going to let her rewrite his story to exclude me. Still, the ache lingered. I met Dana for lunch that Sunday, needing to unload. As I told her everything, she shook her head. She's threatened because you represent a version of Marcus she can't control, Dana said. But you're not replaceable. She knows that. That's why she lashes out. Her words settled into me like truth. That night, I pulled out my journal, a habit I hadn't kept in years. I wrote everything down. Elena's words, Marcus's torn expression, my own fears. I ended with a promise to myself, I will not vanish. Because in the end, belonging isn't granted by someone else. It's claimed. And I was done asking permission to stay. By the time August rolled around, the air in New York had grown heavy, the kind of humid heat that made tempers shorter and patience thinner. My days filled with the usual routines, work deadlines, subway delays, evenings spent on my couch with the hum of a fan. But beneath that normalcy, my friendship with Marcus hung in the balance, stretched thin by Elena's suspicion. One evening, I came home to find a small envelope slipped under my door. I frowned, picking it up. Inside was an invitation, Elena's handwriting unmistakable. Dinner party, Saturday. Our place. Hope you can make it. It was curious, almost unsettling. After her hostility at game night, why would she want me there again? I called Marcus. She insisted. He admitted, Marcus said. She said it's important to start fresh, to show everyone we're all good. Are we? I asked pointedly. He sighed. I don't know. But please, come. I hesitated, but finally agreed. For Marcus's sake. The night of the party, I chose a simple navy dress and tied my hair back neatly. The city buzzed outside as I rode the elevator to their apartment. When the doors opened, laughter spilled into the hallway. Marcus greeted me warmly. You came, he said, relief in his voice. Marcus said. Of course, I replied, forcing a smile. Elena appeared at his side, elegant as ever. She said smoothly. Elena said, we're so glad you're here. Her tone was pleasant, but her eyes carried that same sharpness. Inside, the apartment was crowded, colleagues, neighbors, cousins. I moved through the room, greeting familiar faces, accepting a glass of wine. Marcus stayed close, introducing me to people I didn't know. Elena, meanwhile, floated from group to group, the perfect hostess. Dinner was served buffet style. We filled plates and found seats around the living room. The atmosphere was light, conversation buzzing. For a moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, the evening would pass without incident. Until Elena raised her glass. I want to thank everyone for coming tonight, she said, her voice carrying easily. Elena said, marriage is about building new connections, about unity. And part of that is letting go of old habits and making space for the future. Her eyes flicked toward me, just briefly, but enough for the message to land. My chest tightened. The room clapped politely. Marcus smiled faintly, but his gaze darted nervously in my direction. Later, while people mingled, I stepped out onto the balcony to breathe. The night air was thick, but at least it was quiet. I leaned against a railing, staring at the skyline. You all right? Marcus's voice came from behind. He joined me, hands in his pockets. Depends, I said softly. Was that toast about me? He winced. I think it was more about her trying to assert herself. She doesn't need to erase me to do that, I shot back. He looked at me, guilt in his eyes. I know. I told her that, but she doesn't see it that way. Then what happens, Marcus? I asked. Do I just fade out so she can feel secure? No, he said firmly. Marcus said, I won't let that happen. The conviction in his voice was real, but so was his exhaustion. We were interrupted when the balcony door slid open. Elena stepped out, her smile poised. There you are, she said to Marcus. Elena said, guests are asking for you. Her gaze shifted to me. I hope you're enjoying yourself, she added. I am, I replied, though my tone was cooler than my words. Marcus hesitated, then followed her back inside. I stayed on the balcony, my pulse quickening. Every interaction with her felt like a chess match, and I was tired of playing. When I returned inside, Dana had arrived late. Marcus had invited her too. She spotted me and walked straight over. "You look like you're plotting someone's downfall," she teased. Dana said. "Not plotting," I muttered. "Just surviving." She leaned closer. "I don't like how she watches you." "Neither do I." As the night wore on, the tension thickened. Elena laughed loudly with her friends, but her eyes kept drifting toward me, calculating. At one point, Marcus tried to pull me into a group photo. Elena's hand shot out, resting on his arm. "Maybe just family for this one," she said sweetly. Elena said. The word family hung heavy in the air. Marcus glanced at me, torn, then reluctantly stepped into the frame without me. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile as the camera flashed. Later, as guests began leaving, I slid toward the door. Marcus caught me. "Don't go yet," he said quickly. Marcus said. "I think I should," I answered. I said. "It's clear I'm not welcome." "That's not true," he insisted. "Isn't it?" Before he could answer, Elena appeared again. "Heading out?" she asked smoothly. Elena said. "Yes," I said simply. "Thank you for coming," she said, her tone syrupy. "It means a lot." I looked her in the eye. "I'm sure it does." With that, I left. The elevator ride down felt endless. When I stepped onto the street, the city lights blurred through tears I hadn't expected. I walked aimlessly, the noise of traffic muffled by the pounding in my chest. At home, I called Mama. My voice cracked as I told her everything. "She's trying to erase me, Mama," I whispered. Mama's tone was steady, strong. "Baby, you can't be erased. Not by her. Not by anyone. Marcus knows who you are to him. If she can't accept that, the cracks will show in her marriage, not in your worth." Her words steadied me, but sleep didn't come easily. Over the next days, I replayed the dinner party in my mind. Elena's toast, the photo exclusion, the syrupy smile. It wasn't just insecurity, it was strategy. She wanted to rewrite Marcus's story, casting herself as the only central figure. But she had underestimated me, because my story wasn't hers to erase. And if she thought I would quietly bow out, she was about to learn I had no intention of disappearing. By September, the tension had hardened into something unspoken yet unmistakable. Marcus still called, still texted, but always in stolen moments on his way to work, during a late-night walk, while Elena was in another room. It wasn't the way friendships should exist, hidden like contraband. One Tuesday evening, I sat on my couch scrolling absent-mindedly through emails when his name lit up my phone. "Hey," I answered quickly, my voice soft. "You free?" he asked. Marcus asked. His voice was hushed, almost conspiratorial. "I am. Why?" "I'm walking near the park. Thought maybe we could meet. Just for a few minutes." I hesitated. Meeting in secret felt wrong, like a betrayal I hadn't signed up for. But the need in his voice tugged at me. "All right," I said finally. I slipped on a jacket and walked briskly through the cooling air. The park was nearly empty, save for a few joggers and a couple walking their dog. Marcus stood by a bench, hands stuffed in his pockets. "You look like you're hiding from the law," I teased gently. I said. He smiled faintly. "Feels like it," he admitted. Marcus said. We sat, silence stretching between us before he finally spoke. "Elena and I, it's been rough. She thinks I'm choosing you over her." My chest tightened. "I've never asked you to choose," I said quietly. I said. "I know," he said quickly, "but she sees the way I lean on you. The way I tell you things I don't always tell her. She says it makes her feel like she's second." I looked at him, the man I'd known for over 20 years. "Marcus, if your wife feels second, that's not on me. That's on what's happening between the two of you." He exhaled heavily. "I keep telling her you're family, but she doesn't buy it." "And what do you believe?" I asked softly. I said. His eyes met mine raw. "I believe I need you in my life. I can't imagine it without you." The words hit me with both comfort and sorrow. "Then don't let her erase me," I said firmly. I said. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and muttered, "It's her." I stood. "Go. Don't make this harder." He nodded reluctantly, gave me a quick hug, and walked away. I watched him disappear down the path, my heart aching. 2 days later, Dana dragged me to a gallery opening. She claimed I needed distraction, and maybe she was right. The space was crowded with art students and collectors, wine glasses clinking, conversations buzzing. I wandered through abstract canvases, letting the colors pull me out of my thoughts. Dana caught up to me, smirking. "Guess who just walked in?" she asked. Dana said. I turned, and my stomach dropped. Elena. She was with two women, all laughter and polished confidence. Her eyes scanned the room and landed on me. For a fraction of a second, her smile faltered. Then she strode over. "Aisha," she said smoothly. Elena said. "What a surprise. New York's small," I replied evenly. I said. Dana excused herself, sensing the storm. Elena tilted her head, studying me. "Enjoying the show?" she asked casually. Elena asked. "It's beautiful," I said. "Full of truth." She smirked. "Truth is subjective, don't you think?" I held her gaze. "Not always." Her smile thinned. "Marcus tells me you two met in the park this week," she said suddenly. Elena said. My chest clenched. "He told you?" She laughed lightly. "He tells me everything." Eventually, the implication was clear. Nothing between Marcus and me would stay untouched. "I don't want to fight with you, Elena," I said. "Good," she replied. Elena said. "Because you won't win." Her words burned. Before I could respond, someone called her name, and she turned away, leaving me standing in the glow of neon art. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice. "You won't win." As though Marcus were a prize to be claimed, as though friendship and love were competitions. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling fury rise like heat. The next morning, Mama called. She always seemed to know when I was unraveling. "Talk to me," she said firmly. I told her everything: the park, the gallery, Elena's words. Mama was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Baby, insecure people see everything as a battlefield. But you're not her enemy. You're his friend. If she can't make peace with that, her fight isn't with you. It's with herself." Her voice steadied me. The following weekend, Marcus asked me to brunch. We met at a small diner, the kind of place with chipped mugs and waitresses who called everyone Han. He looked worn, like sleep had been avoiding him. "Elena and I fought again," he confessed. Marcus said. "She thinks I'm hiding things from her." She brought up the gallery. I stirred my coffee. "She told me I won't win." He winced. "I'm sorry." "She shouldn't have said that. She sees me as a rival, Marcus. That's not going away." He rubbed his temples. "I don't want to lose either of you." I leaned forward. "Then you need to decide how you're going to stand in this. Because right now, she's writing the rules, and you're letting her." His eyes flicked up to mine. There was pain in them, but also something else: resolve. Maybe. Or the beginning of it. "I hear you," he said quietly. Marcus said. We ate in near silence after that, the clatter of plates filling the gap between us. When we parted ways, I hugged him tighter than usual. "Don't let her erase me," I whispered. I said. "I won't," he replied. Marcus said. But his voice carried the weight of someone who wasn't sure how. That night, I sat at my desk with my journal. I wrote everything down: her toast, her smile at the gallery, his exhaustion, my own fear. Then I wrote something new. "This is not about winning. It's about being seen." And I promised myself that no matter what Elena did, no matter how she tried to rewrite the story, I would not vanish. Because erasure only works on the silent. And I was done being silent. The calendar page had turned to October, and with it the city seemed to change its costume: cooler air, light that cut the edges of buildings like a stencil, and a feeling that things either settle or snap as the year winds down. For me, the weeks had been a slow accrual of fractures: Marcus's furtive calls, Elena's small dominations, and the way friends began to shift their chairs just a bit when she entered a room. I was tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. One Thursday evening, I received a message that stopped me mid-typing. "Can you come by tonight? I need to talk." Marcus. The brevity of it made the color drain from my face. We met the way we had lately, on a bench under a lamppost near the river, where the light softened everything and conversation could pretend to be private. "You look exhausted," I said, folding my hands to keep them from fidgeting. He laughed, but it was paper thin. I am, Marcus said. I'm sorry. I didn't want to call you, but I needed to see you. What's happened? I asked, the question more a brace than curiosity. He took a breath. We argued tonight. It was about us, about you and me. My stomach tightened. Again? He nodded. She accused me of being dishonest. Said I keep secrets. New secrets. Because of my past with you. You told her the truth. I said. What did she say to that? She said the truth felt like a threat, Marcus said. She said if I was going to keep parts of myself separate, she'd rather have someone who fits neatly. The word neatly lodged somewhere beneath my ribs. Is that how she talks about people? I asked, incredulous. Sometimes, he admitted, Marcus said. She uses tidy language when she wants control. I pictured the immaculate cushions in their apartment, the curated art, the way everything had been aligned to a plan. And you? I pressed. What do you want? He looked at me hard. I want to stop fighting about you. I want to be allowed to have history and also have a future. I want not to choose between the two. The simplicity of it stunned me. Then don't choose. I said. Choose both. Choose the person who has loved you in seasons you might forget to honor. He laughed softly, a sound that was almost a sob. Easier said than done. We sat for a long time after that, speaking in little circles, filling the spaces with things we both already knew. Our shared past, the weight of loyalty, the strange intimacy of those who have survived each other's worst jokes and worst nights. When it was time to part, he squeezed my hand. I'm trying, he said. Marcus said. So was I. But trying is a fragile vessel when someone else keeps jostling the edges. That weekend, a mutual friend, Tara, called me about a gallery where she was organizing an event. They want a panel about community in the arts, she said. Tara said. I thought of you for the nonprofit piece. Would you speak? She sounded hopeful in a way that carried obligation and opportunity. It's next Thursday. I accepted. Public speaking had always been a place where my voice felt strong and exact. Preparing the talk became a small solace. Research, a clear outline, anecdotes about artists whose work stitched neighborhoods back together. I practiced in front of the basil plant, and that night it seemed greener, as if approval had been granted silently. The panel night arrived. The room was full of the kind of people who treat ideas like currency, earnest, hungry, and often generous. I spoke about listening, how community work requires more patience than proclamation, and before I knew it, applause rose like a second breath. Networking afterward felt less like treading water and more like breathing. After the event, someone cornered me, a local arts writer who wanted to profile my work. As we talked, my phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Can we talk tomorrow? At my parents' place? Noon? I smiled. The invitation felt like a small truce. But returning home, my smile frayed. Elena had been at the panel. She always seemed to know where to find the cultural events that made the city pulse, and afterward she'd posted a photo of herself on social media with a caption that read, "Supporting the arts is beautiful when done with the right people." The implication was not gentle. It was an assertion. She had done this before, curate the narrative. Monday morning, I found a note slid under my apartment door. No handwriting, just a printed card with a quote. Some people make room, others make rules. No signature. I stared at the words until they blurred. Whoever had left it wanted me to read the sentence like a verdict. I read it instead like fuel. On Tuesday, Marcus invited me to lunch at a diner we'd once considered our second office. He arrived with a folder of papers, something about health insurance claims for his aunt, trivial on the surface but heavy in the way it made him unshowy and human. I told her, he said, Marcus said, folding a napkin into a neat square between his fingers, that I wouldn't give up the people who've kept me, that I'd find a way to hold both our histories and our future. And I asked. She said I was being dramatic, he replied. Marcus said, like my loyalty is a theatrical choice. I laughed an honest burst. Loyalty isn't drama. It's work. It's showing up without certainty but with consistency. He watched me, eyes soft. I don't know how to do both without hurting someone, he confessed. Marcus said, you can't keep everyone from getting hurt, I said. But you can be honest with yourself about what you value. Honesty is the scaffolding of trust. Without it, marriages are built on borrowed light. The conversation lingered with us like the smell of coffee. He left with a promise to call his mother that evening, something he had postponed, and I left with a small steadiness in my chest. We were making slow, imperfect progress. But that night, an unexpected thing happened. My boss at the nonprofit emailed to say we'd been offered a grant, significant funding for a community mural project. Joy flared in me, and for the first time in months, something about the future felt expansive, not fraught. The work would demand late nights and coordination, but it would also be public and rooted in neighborhoods I loved. I told Marcus. He was as delighted as I was, and for a moment, the rest of the world softened. "Let's celebrate," he said. Marcus said. "Dinner? Just us?" We arranged it for Friday. I thought about what to wear, and for once the decision didn't feel freighted. I chose the burgundy dress again because its color felt like an armor I liked. When I arrived at the restaurant, he stood and hugged me like he'd been waiting for this exact breath. We ordered. We laughed through small talk, and then he reached across the table and said, "I told her tonight. I told her I want you in my life." His voice was steady, and in it I could hear the work of someone who had spent days mapping his loyalties. My chest flooded with relief and fear in equal measure. "That matters," I said. Not sure it fixed everything, he admitted, the honest admission that made him human. But I told her. I drew a line. He also told me something I hadn't expected, that Elena had suggested couples therapy, and he had agreed. "She wants us to learn new language," he said. Marcus said. "I think that could be good." I considered the gesture. Therapy meant effort, and effort promised change. It also meant partners sitting across from each other explaining what they feared and why. "If it helps you be honest about what you need," I said, "then support it. But don't let it be a negotiation that erases the rest of your life." We ate the rest of dinner in comfortable silence, the city lights beyond the window like gentle witnesses. When we left, he walked me to the subway and hugged me. A long human hug that folded in years of history and trust. On the ride home, I thought about the weeks ahead. Murals to plan, panels to attend, a friend trying to reconcile two halves of his life. It felt, for the first time in months, like a slow unspooling rather than a taut wire ready to snap. I told myself then quietly, like prayer, that I would keep standing, that I would accept the help that came and refuse the erasure that was offered as control. Marcus had spoken. Elena had offered therapy. The city would keep moving, indifferent and generous at once. There was no need victory yet. There probably wouldn't be. But in the small mercies and honest conversation, a grant approved, a dinner that didn't end in a door slamming, I felt the architecture of belonging being rebuilt, fragile but real. And I would be there to help hold it steady, come what may. By November, the mural project had swallowed most of my days. Meetings with artists, calls with sponsors, community outreach. My calendar looked like a battlefield of sticky notes and deadlines. But the busyness gave me something priceless, space from Elena's shadow. One Saturday morning, I stood in front of the half-finished mural in the Bronx, paint-splattered sneakers on my feet, and felt a quiet pride. The wall was alive with color swirls of faces, hands reaching, symbols of resilience. Children from the block stopped to watch, some even picked up brushes. It felt like building something larger than myself, something unerasable. Marcus showed up that afternoon, a surprise coffee in hand. "Figured you could use this," he said. Marcus said. I laughed, wiping sweat from my forehead. "You figured right." He looked at the mural, eyes wide. "It's beautiful, Aisha. You're making a mark no one can cover." The words hit deeper than he probably intended. "That's the goal," I said softly. We stood side by side for a moment, just taking it in. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening. "It's Elena," he muttered. Marcus said. I stepped back, giving him space. He answered, voice low. After a short exchange, he hung up, tension written all over his face. "She's upset I didn't tell her I was coming here," he admitted. Marcus said. I sighed. "Marcus, I know," he interrupted. Marcus said. "I told her this is important to me, that you're important to me." She didn't want to hear it. There was nothing left to say. We both knew where the fault lines lay. A week later, Dana and I sat in our favorite cafe, steam from our cups fogging the window. She listened as I recounted the latest friction. "She's not going to stop," Dana said bluntly. Dana said, "You know that, right? She's determined to push you out." "I know," I admitted. "But Marcus isn't letting her." "Not yet, anyway." Dana leaned in. "The question is, how much are you willing to endure? Because this isn't just about him anymore. It's about your peace." Her words lodged in my chest. Peace. Something I hadn't truly felt in months. Not long after, Marcus invited me to dinner at his parents' house. I hesitated. Family settings meant Elena too, but he assured me she'd be working late. "It'll be just like old times," he promised, Marcus said. And it was. For a while. His mother hugged me tightly. His father teased me about never calling enough. We ate fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread, the kind of meal that feels like home. For a few hours, I forgot the tension, forgot the sting of that wedding night. After dinner, Marcus and I sat on the porch, the autumn air crisp. "I miss this," he admitted, Marcus said. "The simplicity." I nodded. "Me too." He turned to me, eyes searching. "Do you ever think about how different life would be if things had gone another way?" The question startled me. "What do you mean?" I asked. "If we'd, I don't know, chosen each other." The words hung in the air like smoke. My heart thudded. "Marcus, we never were like that," I said quickly. "Not exactly," he admitted. "But sometimes I wonder." I took a deep breath. "Wondering isn't the same as wanting." He looked away, embarrassed. "You're right. I'm sorry. I feel caught." I shaw between what I owe and what I need. I touched his hand gently. "Then you need to figure out which weight you can carry without breaking." That conversation haunted me for days. I told Mama, careful with my words. She listened quietly, then said, "Baby, when a man starts speaking in hypotheticals, it means he's restless. But restlessness isn't commitment. Don't let his longing become your burden." She was right. Marcus's choices weren't mine to fix. December crept in with its lights and festivities. The nonprofit hosted a holiday fundraiser, and for once, joy wasn't complicated. The mural had been completed and unveiled to cheers. Donors mingled with artists and laughter filled the room. Near the end of the night, Marcus arrived. "Alone?" "You came?" I said, surprised. "Of course," he said. Marcus said, "I wouldn't miss this." He walked with me around the gallery, admiring photos of the mural's progress. His pride was genuine, his support steady, and for a moment, it felt like the world outside didn't exist. But then, near the bar, I caught sight of Elena. My stomach dropped. She hadn't come with him, but she had come. Alone. She walked over, a glass of wine in hand. "Aisha," she said coolly. Elena said, "Congratulations. The mural is bold." "Thank you," I replied. Her smile was thin. "It must feel good being celebrated, being seen." I met her gaze. "It does, and it should." Marcus shifted uncomfortably beside us. "Elena," he began, Marcus said. She cut him off. "Don't, Marcus. Let her enjoy her spotlight." Her tone dripped with bitterness, but I refused to shrink. "I will," I said firmly. For the first time, Elena's composure cracked. Her eyes flashed, and she muttered something under her breath before walking away. Marcus rubbed his temples. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Marcus said, "Stop apologizing for her." I said gently. "It's not your apology to give." He nodded, defeated. That night, lying in bed, I realized something. Elena had spent months trying to erase me, to push me into silence. But standing in that fundraiser, with my work celebrated and my presence undeniable, I saw the truth. I didn't need Marcus's validation. I didn't need Elena's approval. I had my own place in this world. And no one, not even a bride with sharp words and sharper intentions, could take that away. Still, I knew the story wasn't finished. The tension hadn't broken yet. And when it finally did, someone would be left standing in the wreckage. I just prayed it wouldn't be me. The new year arrived with its usual promises, resolutions whispered into champagne flutes, fireworks splitting the sky. I didn't make any. Resolutions felt hollow when you were just trying to hold your ground. By January, the mural had become a landmark. People stopped to take photos. Teachers brought students for field trips. Neighbors left flowers at its base. It wasn't just art. It was testimony. And in its colors, I saw a reflection of my own fight, not loud, but unerasable. Marcus came by one afternoon, bundled against the cold. "You've made something permanent," he said quietly, Marcus said, his breath visible in the air. I smiled. That was the point. We walked together, boots crunching on salted sidewalks. He spoke about work, his parents, even therapy with Elena. "The sessions help us talk without shouting," he admitted, Marcus said. "But the subject of you, it's still a battlefield." I sighed. I never wanted to be the reason for that. "You're not the reason," he said firmly, Marcus said. "You're just a mirror she doesn't want to look into." His words stayed with me long after we parted. 2 weeks later, I received an email from the lead photographer at Marcus's wedding, the one who'd told me that photo of me standing between them was powerful. "I thought you'd want to see this," she wrote. Attached was the photo. I opened it, and my breath caught. There I was, standing tall, unflinching, between Marcus and Elena. My chin lifted, my eyes steady. Elena's expression was sharp, Marcus's conflicted. But me, I looked like someone who refused to vanish. I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't humiliation frozen. It was resilience. Proof. I printed a copy and framed it, placing it on my desk beside my grandmother's locket. The breaking point came not with a scream, but with a whisper. It was February, a cold evening. Marcus called, his voice weary. "Can you meet me?" he asked. Marcus asked. We met at the cafe, the one with chipped mugs. He looked worn, his hands restless around the cup. "She gave me an ultimatum," he said finally, Marcus said. My chest tightened. "What kind?" "She said if I want this marriage to work, I have to cut you out. Completely." The words landed like stones. I forced myself to breathe. "And what did you say?" He looked up, eyes shining. I said no for a moment. Silence swallowed us. Then tears pricked my eyes, not from sadness, but from relief, from validation. "Marcus," I whispered, I said. "I told her," he continued, Marcus said, "that you're not optional, that you're part of who I am. If she can't accept that, then maybe she doesn't accept me." I reached across the table, gripping his hand. That took courage. He squeezed back. "It's time I had some." The aftermath was messy. Days later, I heard from Tara that Elena had moved out temporarily, claiming she needed space. Gossip spread quickly, friends choosing sides, whispers about incompatibility. I stayed quiet, refusing to feed the fire. One evening, Dana came over with takeout and a bottle of wine. "You know people are going to blame you," she warned, Dana said. "I know," I admitted, "but I also know the truth. And so does Marcus." She raised her glass. "To truth, then, and to refusing to vanish." We clinked glasses. Weeks passed. Marcus and Elena tried therapy again, but cracks only widened. Eventually, Marcus told me what I had already sensed. "She filed for separation," he said quietly, Marcus said. I studied his face, searching for grief. "How do you feel?" I asked. He exhaled, sad, relieved, guilty, free, all of it at once. I nodded. "That sounds human." He smiled faintly. "I don't know what comes next, but I know I won't lose you. That matters most." And just like that, the tension that had haunted us for months lifted. Not gone completely. Life is never that clean, but lighter, manageable. Spring returned, and with it, new beginnings. The nonprofit launched another project, my calendar full again. At the unveiling of a second mural, Marcus stood beside me, applause echoing around us. "I'm proud of you," he said, Marcus said. "I'm proud of us," I corrected, I said. Because it wasn't just my fight, it was his too. The photograph from the wedding still sits on my desk. Some days I look at it and remember the sting of those words, "You're ruining the photos." But most days, I see something else. I see the moment I chose not to disappear. I see the strength to stand tall when someone tried to cut me down. I see proof that humiliation doesn't get the last word, resilience does. And in that image, in that memory, I find the justice I needed. Because the bride who tried to erase me is gone from the frame of Marcus's life. But me? I'm still here, and I'm not going anywhere.